Alright, so this is going to be part 11 to What If Deku Had One for All. I know this took a long time to do. It's been around like, I think 5 months since I did the last part. I'm sorry I didn't get to this earlier. It's just that I didn't really remember the anime and I had to rewatch it. And in that time, I didn't really do that. And I just got caught up with other series. And I don't know. It just, My Hero, I was kind of oversaturated with it a bit. You know what I mean? I just needed some time away from that, and to watch other things just to keep myself, you know, not burnt out on making what ifs in general. That's why I started doing Black Clover ones and even my Shield Hero ones. So yeah. Also, I've been thinking of doing another Shield Hero what if. I don't know if you guys want me to do it, and that would be what if Nafumi was the Spear Hero. And for that series, I won't do like a script for the first couple videos, because I'll have the Sword Hero kind of one as a base, so it kind of I know what to do in general and where the story could go off. But yeah, it won't be a copy, obviously, of Sword Hero. But yeah, anyways, with that being off to the side, this video will be a little bit shorter since it's not going over the actual big arc. This is actually going over the stuff that's in between, so that we could get that out of the way and we could focus on the arc in the next video. So yeah, so our story would start off a little bit after the day after the All For One fight, and this is where All Might is actually going to visit All For One in prison, and they have a similar conversation to what they had in canon, but All For One questions All Might and asks him, "How come your successor has such a similar quirk to mine?" Makes you wonder, doesn't it? And this is where All Might basically tells All For One that he has no connection to him. He just happened to be born with a similar quirk to you. And at this point, All For One is trying to get into his head and make him doubt his situation, but All Might is trying to keep strong and doesn't listen to him. And this is where he switches over to Mirio. Like, he talks about Mirio. He tells All Might, how come you didn't choose the boy to be your successor, and why did you choose the blonde teenager or whatever? And this is where All Might basically explains why. Although Deku was grown up with All Might and has the same ideals, so does Mirio, and Mirio wasn't around All Might that entire time, so he developed that kind of personality by himself, as well as having two strong heroes would be better than just having one very strong hero like All Might, because the difference between the number one hero at the time, which would be All Might, and Endeavor, is somewhat large. But yeah, that's basically his rationale behind doing so. So with that being said, they have nothing really else to say to each other, and All Might actually goes and leaves. So after this, it would be the talk with Izuku at the beach, I believe. And keep in mind, since All Might, Togeda or Mirio, as well as Deku were on national TV, I guess, yeah, it would be national TV, he has been getting pressed by by basically news reporters asking for an interview, and Deku really has done some stuff. He is somewhat used to being in the spotlight because of his quirk getting revealed somewhat early in the series, as well as getting reports on him and his quirk. So he takes it with some stride, and people know that he's one of the successors to All Might. They don't think it's like a personal thing. I think people think that All Might was speaking in general or in generals when he talked about these people or these two students. He was talking about, they think he was talking about like the students in general will be his successors and not these two in particular. But they do know that they have very strong quirks and do press him for interviews, which Deku does oblige and does somewhat of a good interview, which gives him more popularity in or gives him somewhat of a small fame in his town or city, which makes it a little bit hard for him to actually meet up with All Might, but not too much since it would be kind of late. So they meet up at the beach, and Togeda or Mirio is actually there, and All Might didn't really tell Deku that he was gonna bring him, and neither did he tell Mirio that Deku would come. So he brings both of them there, and he explains that he might die pretty soon because around 6 years ago, he was told by his old partner Night Eye that he was gonna die in a very brutal way. They don't know too much of the details because of the nature of Night Eye's quirk, but they do know that he will die at some point. They don't know if they could change the outcome, but he just wanted to tell them since these two are his successors. And eventually, even though All Might was healed, he will lose his power at some point. Maybe not as quickly as it was in canon, but he will at some point lose it. He didn't have to push himself too far during the fight, but like I said, all for one or one for all doesn't stay with you forever after you give it to someone. So both of them are taking this in, not only the fact that All Might die, but also the fact that he might lose his power someday. So All Might, he does something similar to what he does in canon, and he retires. He retires and tells the press that he doesn't need to worry, even though the future might seem bleak. There are people that can surpass him, or even or there are people that are going to succeed him and maybe even surpass him in both strength and influence. So he's talking about both Mirio and Deku at this point, but he doesn't give out specific names. So at this press release, or this kind of interview that he's doing with the press, people have mixed feelings online. Some people are very, saddened by All Might leaving because, again, he's such an influential character and person, while others are somewhat happy to see that the future is not as dark as they might have thought, especially with that one fight. So people think it might have to do with the fight that he did, but All Might ensures him that he still has his power. He just needs to retire for the sake of the next generation. So that's really why he retires at this point. So we could kind of skip maybe a day or two, and this is the point where they're actually going, or the teacher's actually going around and asking permission for the dorm system. So it happens normally, just how it does in canon, but All Might is obviously not in a Small Might form. So he would go to, Aizawa and him would go to each student's house, basically telling the parents the reason why they're doing the dorm system, as well how it's going to work and why their child will be safer there. So everything goes as normal until they get to Bakugo's house, and this is where Bakugo asks the same question to All Might, and that is, what is Deku to you? And All Might doesn't say the same answer that it does in canon. Instead, he says something a little bit different, and he tells him that Midoriya, he's been with him since he was a little kid, and he sees him almost like a son to him, because if you don't know, All Might didn't really have any children, and because he was there for Deku when his father wasn't, he sees Deku as almost as like a son to him and cares for him a lot, and that's why, or that's one of the reasons why he became one of his successors. So yeah, Bakugo is taken back by this kind of outward kind of emotion that All Might hasn't really shown before, and doesn't proceed to push it. So we would get to the next house, and this is going to be Deku's house. So Deku and his mom, they would still be excited for All Might to come, because even though they've been, around All Might for so much, it's not like he does regular visits to the house. So All Might is actually, or they're kind of nervous a little bit that All Might's actually coming. So All Might does the same kind of speech and talks about whether or not, or that Izuku should go with the dorm system and it'd be better for him. And Inko, unlike in canon, is somewhat more on the side of All Might. She isn't as opposed to the idea as she was in canon. She is somewhat opposed to it because she did see the fight and doesn't want her son to be injured in any way. And she tells All Might, if you could promise that my son won't get hurt or won't die, then she'll let him be in the dorm. And this is where All Might would actually kneel in front of her and says, he'll put his life on the line so that he won't die. And she would tell him to get up, and that she doesn't want that. She wants him to live, but also wants her son to be happy as well as being safe. So All Might agrees to this, and Deku is guaranteed to stay at UA. So we would get to the next part, and that is actually going to be the, when they get to the dorms. So they would have that same kind of contest that they would do normally, right? But the only difference is that Deku's room would be a little bit different. He won't be as obsessed with All Might because he's been with All Might for the majority of his life. So his room would be a little bit different because of the slight difference in his personality. So I think his place would be, where his room would be a little bit more modern and kind of more fancy because of the way that he kind of has his hero outfit as the kind of white blazer, which is opposed to kind of One For All's black kind of messy suit, if you know what I mean. So he doesn't win the kind of contest because Sato would still win because of him making those kind of desserts. So people just see people see more of what Deku has, or his personality is, in terms of his room. So it gives them a better insight into that. So we would get a little bit further along, and this is the part where they actually do kind of like ultimate moves. So for Deku, it's a little bit different than the others since he has so many different quirks. He could either focus on one and make an ultimate move for each, or he could combine a few to make different combinations. So All Might would still be around this point to help out every student with coming up with their idea for that. Except for really Deku. He doesn't tell him much. He tells him that it's up to you, Deku, or Midoriya. You have infinite potential with your quirks. So you have to come up with something that is original to you, that you feel is worth developing. So I'm not sure exactly how many super moves we should have for Deku. I've been thinking of a few. And that is basically combining his lightning as well as his fire, and combine that into some sort of like spear or even a bow, something similar to that, just how he's been doing for, or not really, he hasn't really combined it, but he has been making weapons. and maybe teleporting to someone to basically have this huge explosion happen. But yeah, similar things happened to in canon where a piece of debris was about to fall on All Might, but Deku actually saves him by throwing this kind of black kind of electric flame, like not arrow, more like a spear or javelin, and basically explodes the rock, saving him. Bakugo would be a little bit pissed off of this and basically go back to train. So yeah, this is gonna be the end of the video. I know this was short compared to my other parts. It's just that this part has a lot of kind of stuff that is not too important in terms of the overall plot. I guess it is, but it's not part of the main arc, let's say. So yeah, this is gonna be another video. If you made it to this end of the video, make sure to comment down CS so I know that you made it to the end and that you support the channel. If you want to see other content similar to this, you can go subscribe to my channel. Remember to like the video, and yeah, I'm gonna do the next part of prototype somewhat soon. I don't know if it's gonna be this day or the next, but yeah. With that being said, this is gonna be the video. So yeah.